The NBA playoffs is what define careers at the end of the day, and when we think of superstars, we tend to associate them with their postseason success. For example, when we think about guys like Michael Jordan, we always tend to mention how he went 6-0 in the finals, and on the contrary, when we think about guys like Charles Barkley or Allen Iverson, we tend to mention how they were great players but could never win a championship. In fact, we always see lists of superstars and great players who have never been able to win a championship, and just to name a few, we have Karl Malone, Reggie Miller, Vince Carter, Steve Nash, Damian Lillard, and even Nikola Jokic, but I think that one's about to change very soon. But that list is never ending, as it is definitely not easy to win a championship in the NBA. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the top 5 worst performances from NBA superstars during this playoff run. And at number 1, we have no other than Jordan Poole. Now, I don't know if I would even necessarily consider Jordan Poole to be a superstar, but he definitely has fallen incredibly short so many times during this playoff run for the Warriors.
Jordan Poole, keep shooting. I like the way you've been missing, brother.
This was the first year that the Warriors have been knocked out of the second round since this dynasty has begun, and despite my opinions of the Warriors being cheated by the refs, I can confidently and sadly say that the refs weren't the only problem in this series. Last year in the playoffs, Jordan Poole averaged about 27 minutes a game, but this year he only had 22, and as a Warriors fan, I'd like to ask why he even played that much. I mean, I get that you're paying the guy a lot of money, but at the same time, if he's not helping the team win, then I don't think he should be playing. And at a certain point, you have to make a decision off of what's best for the team and not anything else. But let's keep in mind why Jordan Poole is even on this team to begin with. He's here for his offensive abilities. Because if you didn't know, Jordan Poole is a terrible defender and he's not someone that you can rely on to hold his own. So with that being said, Jordan Poole last season averaged 17 points per game, and with only 6 minutes less in average time, he managed to nearly half those points at 10.3 points per game. Now this was a big problem because the Warriors were expecting to be an even better team than he was last year, but that didn't seem to come true. Jordan's lack of defensive effort and offensive points has always been the main reason for his lack of playing time. Now before we move on from Jordan, the icing on the cake of his worst moments would definitely have to be against the Lakers in Game 1 when he took this shot.
Jordan Poole lets it fly, no!
Now it's sad that this is actually his worst moment because in this game he was actually playing pretty well. And before he attempted this shot, he was 6 of 10 from deep. But in a late game situation like that, that is not the kind of shot that you want to be taking, and I would have much rathered if you had the ball in Steph Curry's hands. Because let's be honest, you can't really go wrong when Steph has the ball. Oh so fresh, oh so smooth, it's your boy Eli back with the groove, and today's video has been brought to you by the subscribe button. So before you leave, make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss out on any of this basketball content. Next up on the list, we have Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid has been the MVP of this year, and obviously, if you are an MVP, then you're definitely pretty good at your job. This season, Joel averaged 33.1 points per game and 10.2 rebounds per game. He even had 4.2 assists. But even though he averaged all these points during the regular season, which was enough to give him the scoring title by the way, that number would drastically drop in the playoffs. When the playoffs came around, Joel would average 10 less points, 2 assists, and just about the same amount of rebounds, but at the end of the day, he didn't have the same impact that he had during the regular season. Now, obviously, we do expect these numbers to go down at least a little bit when it comes down to the playoffs because you have a long series and teams are able to adjust, and the defense also starts to intensify. Now, Joel Embiid has been to the playoffs 5 times, but with every year, he seems to have either bad luck or he's just not that good when it really counts. I mean, let's look at what has gone down for the Sixers in the past 6 years. In 2019, Kawhi Leonard hit this legendary shot that led to an eventual championship for the Raptors, and this shot alone sent Joel Embiid crying back to the locker room. Now, me personally, I would never be caught crying on live television, but that's just me. In 2020, the Sixers got swept by the Boston Celtics, and that really wasn't much of a series, obviously. In 2021, they lost to the 5th seeded Atlanta Hawks team, and that's after they clinched the 1st seed. And that was a series where we had all the Ben Simmons drama, and he passed up that layup and this and that, and they weren't able to move on. And then in 2022, Embiid's face is broken and Harden disappears, and the team just overall played really bad, and the Philadelphia fans are booing their own team after losing the series in 6 games. And then in 2023, 23, the Sixers are able to take a 3-2 lead, but they're not able to capitalize on this lead as they fumbled the next 2 games both at home and away and lost to the Boston Celtics. And with the opportunity being back at home for Game 6, they now have a chance to close out the series, but they just simply weren't able to because James Harden disappeared. Now my point in all this is that's a lot to go through in 6 years, so Philadelphia fans, I truly do feel sad for you. But for the longest while, Joel Embiid has been trying to get an MVP award, and this year he finally got that monkey off his back, and we were hoping that he'd be able to go as far as the finals and potentially match up with Jokic, the MVP runner-up, but that didn't happen. But I will say that he lacked the effort that was needed to win these games, or maybe he was just shut down by the Celtics defense. However you want to see it, they didn't win. But Sixers fan, let me know in the comment section down below what your thoughts are for this next season and what adjustments you guys can make to potentially win. Because if you ask me, I truly have no idea what the solution is. Now next up on the list, we have an all-time favorite in my city, and that'll be Julius Randle. Now for those of you guys that don't know, I grew up in New York, and being from New York, I know a whole ton of Knicks fans. Now, ever since Julius Randle has been on this team, he has been one of the most inconsistent players on the team and maybe even in the league. I mean, one day it'll look like he's a bona fide superstar and he can take your team to the finals and get the job done, and another day he'll look like a glorified role player that doesn't even belong in the NBA. In fact, Stephen A. Smith, one of the most popular Knicks fans after Spike Lee that is, even said that Julius Randle has got to go in this offseason. One of the problems with Julius Randle is his lack of shooting, and it's really not just Julius, but it's actually this whole Knicks team as a whole, and as they head into this offseason, I do believe that they'll need to get some shooting because they cannot shoot that ball from deep. And in today's league, you need that deep shot if you want to be able to win a championship. This year, the Knicks shot at 29.2%, and to say the least, those numbers will never bring a championship to New York. But let's look at Julius Randle's game log. If we just look at the points section alone, we can see how unreliable and unpredictable he really is as a player. In Game 1 against the Cavs, Julius Randle had 19 points, and in Game 2, he had 22, but then in Games 3 and 4, he was only able to have 11 and 7. And he wasn't much help in Game 5 either, only scoring 13 points. Now, even though he was a little bit better in the Heat series, the inconsistency was still there. I don't think that Julius Randle is going to be on the team for much longer, but I want to know what you Knicks fans think in the comment section down below, so please don't be shy and let me know. I also hope that Julius will make better decisions when he has the ball, as he tends to take bad shots and just get some sloppy turnovers. But moving on, we have Kawhi Leonard and the Los Angeles Clippers. It has really been sad to see guys like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard miss out on playing games that they could have had a chance to win. Now, I can't really say that the Clippers have played bad during this playoff run because, in my opinion, they won one more game than I thought they would. Heading into this series, I predicted a sweep because I knew that Paul George would be out, and I also knew that they probably wouldn't stand a chance against Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and their amazing offense. But to make it even worse, Kawhi Leonard was out once again with yet another injury, and that prevented him from playing most of the games in the series. If Kawhi Leonard is going to be out this much, then I don't know if this Clippers team will ever have a chance or even a shot at making the finals, because you can't win without your best players. I remember when I first heard the news about Kawhi's injury, I thought it was a joke or some kind of a parody, because it's just unbelievable that even after all that load managing this season, he still wasn't able to play when you needed him most in the playoffs. In the offseason, I'll probably make a video about how load management doesn't really seem to work in the NBA, but just as of today, I will say that we're not doing something right because all these players are load managing and then they still can't play in the playoffs. I mean, back in the day, we had guys that would play for 82 games and it was pretty normal, but now we're lucky to see if some of the best players on a team will play for 55. I really do hope that next season Kawhi Leonard, Russell Westbrook, and Paul George are all able to play together in the playoffs and we'll finally be able to see what this Clippers team can do. However, I don't think that they're going to be able to win a championship anytime soon. But enough about Kawhi and the Clippers, let's move on to the next player on our list. So to end this video off, we have one of the most hated players in the league in Dillion Brooks. Dillion Brooks was so bad in this playoff run that the Memphis Grizzlies came out with a statement saying how they will not be bringing him back under any circumstances. Now that's tough, and at this point, Dillion is probably going to be known for his dances and his pre-game warm-ups more than the impact that he actually had on the court. And honestly, I don't know if he's even going to be in the league next season. But let me know in the comment section down below if you want him on your team. The problem with Dillion Bricks is that he lacks offense, and in today's league, if you're not able to shoot the ball well, then you don't really have much value to any team, and Brooks is a 22% three-point shooter on pull-up threes, and he only shoots at about 35% from mid-range. So if Dillion Brooks wants to be back in the league next year, then I suggest that he starts working on his offensive bag because he's gonna need it. Because when you think about it, the defense that he brings isn't enough to make up for the bricks that he throws on offense, and some of the shots that he takes is just plain silly. And then along with him being just a bad overall player, he still finds a way to get into altercations with other players such as Donovan Mitchell, Draymond Green, and oh yeah, that's right, even LeBron James. I mean, he's really just a troublemaker, and trust me, the Grizzlies have enough of those. But can somebody explain to me why he's pulling up from deep like he's Steph Curry? Let's take a look at how well he performed against the Los Angeles Lakers. We're going to start with his defense, especially considering that he wasn't brought onto the team for his offensive abilities. In all 6 games against the Lakers, he had zeros across the board when it came to steals. Well, that is except for game 3 where he had just 1 steal. Now, I guess what you're probably thinking is, okay, he's just not that good of a thief, but I'm sure he has other abilities that are great, right? Well, when it comes to blocks in this series against the Lakers, he couldn't even get 1 block against this team. In fact, he averaged more turnovers per game than steals and blocks combined. So you're probably saying, okay, he's not a stealer, he's not a blocker, but I'm sure he could really shoot that thing from deep. Well, you'd be wrong once again, because most of the points that he had in this series was in game 1 where he had 15. In game 2 he had 12 points, in game 3 he had 7, and in game 4 and 5 he had 11 and 8. And to end the series in an elimination game, he had only 10 points. However, you do have to give credit where it's due because his dance is pretty fire. Now guys, it took me a really long time to make this video, so if you guys could subscribe to the channel, it would mean the world to me. If you did make it to the end, comment Dillion Bricks down below, just so that I know. You guys can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and even Twitter as well. So do all that great stuff, and until next time, let's light 'em up.